Hello and welcome. I am Stacey Thomas, author, ALS advocate, film producer, and talk show host. I'm here to motivate, educate, and entertain. Join me on YouTube every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Stacey Thomas Talk Show, where we have powerful discussions centered around health, relationship, careers, and everyday conversation. Follow me on Facebook, I am Stacey Thomas. On Instagram, Stacey Thomas Talk Show. And don't forget, I can promote you too. Email me at iamstaceythomas@gmail.com. Now, it's time for the show. Hey, everybody. This is I am Stacey Thomas. I am your host of this show and a segment called The Business Block. Stacey, what's the business block? I'm glad you asked. It was created to promote business owners, entrepreneurs, and change makers in the community. And I am very pleased tonight because I have someone, look at God, that will bless all the platforms with what he has to say as we learn who he is. Author, pastor, attorney, real estate person, community service leader. There's probably more, but just to give you a little bit of information, let's welcome him. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
You're good. First, I'd like to say thank you for blessing my platform. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Kingsberry, first of all, very interesting name. So I've seen you out all over the news, right? So congratulations is in order. Congratulations on your new position as the county attorney for Prince George County, Virginia.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
But you're welcome. But I would be remiss if I didn't say this. For those of you who are watching or who would be listening to the radio part of this ain't your first rodeo. This isn't your first time crossing boundaries. This isn't your first time being the first African American to do this or do that. So I can't say to you, how does it feel making history? But my question for you is, what in the world do you think is the reason or who got you crossing all these boundaries and making these big moves?
Wow. That's such a loaded question, but I just first and foremost, I said to God be the glory. I am a man of faith, and everything I've done in my life has been because of the God. The Lord has blessed me to do many things that I thought were impossible at one time, but it's God. And then my mother. So my mother, I cannot ever talk about me without talking about my mother. My mother, her name was Reverend. She was a minister too and a reverend in the Baptist church, Sheila Kingsberry Burt. She raised me and my brother by herself. And she just instilled the importance of being educated and being able to take care of ourselves and our family. She was a poet. I actually published a book of her poems. She was a prolific speaker and writer. When people called me eloquent, I was like, you just got to know who I come from. So I give credit to God and my mother and my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, Swade Exum, taught me how to be a man and how to take care of my wife and my children. So that's who I give the credit to.
Oh my goodness. And that accent is there. Born and raised in North Carolina.
Look, I've lived some everywhere, but when I get in the country comes out. So a little country. Yes, ma'am.
I love it. And I love the fact that you're not ashamed to say where it came from. And I love the fact that you said how you disclosed raised by your mother.
Yeah.
Because what people fail to understand is fathers are special, so don't y'all get mad at me. But there's something about a mother and a strong African American mother.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed.
Kudos to your mother and grandparents. And it's just something how when the family's together, even when there's a missing link, God puts somebody there to keep you straight.
That's right. He's always all the while working.
I know so. Yes, and I got to tell you, okay, so two things. I saw you on the news. I saw you on social media. They said Hassan Kingsberry making history in Prince George County. Okay. So first I see the African American man, and I said, is he the first? And then I read, he is the first. But then I'm gonna tell you what really got me. Pastor, hold up.
Yes, indeed.
My question, sir, that I've been dying to ask. You have man's law, you have God's word. How do you balance being a pastor and being in a courtroom?
Wow, wow, that's a good question. Um, God, what, and I don't want get deep and philosophical, but
Do you?
even law itself, man's law at the core is rooted in biblical law, God's law. All things kind of stem from the laws that we have in our society, like don't kill, don't murder, don't steal. They come from the Ten Commandments, from biblical principles and more. So I find it not contradictory. I remember years and years ago when I told my grandparents that I was going to be a lawyer. One of them say, "Oh, you're going to be a liar," and it stuck in my head. And because that's what their experience with certain lawyers was. But I made sure that one thing I don't do, I don't lie. You don't have to lie and break God's law or your integrity as a believer in order to represent someone zealously or do your job. You just use the law and the case law and the facts to make a case for your client. But I never have found a contradiction between my faith and having integrity and being in the courtroom. As a matter of fact, I think it's the passion that I have as a man of God that has helped me advocate best for people. Even when I knew I had clients that were guilty, they still deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. They still deserve due process, So I've never had a contradiction between those two now. And balancing the roles, I've been able to be a pastor, leading Sunday worship and Bible study, and I'm building on all the ministerial things. I went to divinity school. How I fell in love with Virginia was actually I went to Regent University to get my master's in divinity. And I used to have to travel up there for about 4 years every semester. And I just fell in love with riding down 58 and going into the Tidewater area in different areas. So I balance my work as an attorney during the week with what I need to do on the weekend and sometimes during the week as a pastor. So I've never had a contradiction in between my faith and my practice as an attorney.
Wow. Has it ever gotten gotten too heavy?
Listen, the thing about it's Black History Month, so you can't help but talk about Black people. It's burdens and handling heaviness is in our DNA. You know what I'm saying? My mother, I have to go back to I watched her go through many things trying to raise me and my brother. And I always would say, when I get older, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But what I found that every life has a set of adversity that you have to deal with, and it makes you who you are. So at a young age, I knew I was going to be a pastor. I ran from it for a long time. I wanted to be like everybody else, to be honest. I wanted to smoke and drink and do whatever I wanted to do. But there was a crossroads in my life in college where I knew God had called me to not be like everybody else, and I was going to have to carry his word and minister and just live a certain way. And so the greatest challenges I've had in my life, I believe, have come just because of the call of God. And that's how you're made. You know what I'm saying? I've dealt with, my job has been nothing really. I've had some rough situations. My mother, the woman I loved, and I had to take care of her. When I was, oh man, I had just got married. My mother had a set of strokes that just took over her life and her body, and she stayed in the nursing home for like almost 15, 17 years. And I was her caregiver. My wife and I together, how would I forget my wife, who I'll say that because I'm gonna cry if I talk about her. But me and her together have weathered. We've had 2 children to pass away due to some genetic disorders, and we've had just like, and then we had like a string of grief and loss that we had to navigate through and minister to other people. So the weight of being a pastor and the weight of being an attorney is nothing compared to just having some of the things that have happened to us. But God made me a certain way, and He made Black people. I hate to say, He just made Black people that way. Who could you imagine carry the middle passage experience and come through it? And we're just a strong, resilient people. So I'm used to challenges, and I've learned to bear it as a badge of responsibility and honor, because whom the Lord loves, He corrects. You can't, no cross, no crown. People, life is just not going to be easy. So now I'm at a place where I can look back and thank God for adversities that made me. So it's a response. My mother made me responsible, and she taught me things at a young age, which I didn't like. I remember the first time I got my first job, she took half the check to help pay a bill. And looking back, I didn't like it. And I wouldn't do that to my children, but it taught me how to be responsible. And so I count it an honor to have dealt with any adversity or responsibility.
So your grandmother was a reverend, right? Is that what you said?
My mother was a reverend.
Your mother was a reverend.
Yeah.
So you've been prayed up since the day you were born, since you were in the womb.
Oh yeah.
But even with that being said, you and your wife, hello, beautiful wife, if you see this, you've had your own storms back to back. And you still serve the community, and you're still standing in the pulpit. Did you ever feel like giving up?
Oh, yeah. Many days I felt like giving up, but it was my wife. My wife, I'm telling you, having someone with you in the fire makes a difference. And I met my wife
in college. I'm so happy how you talk about your wife. Go ahead.
Oh, that's my baby. Listen, we met at UNC Chapel Hill. She's from New Jersey. Okay. And she actually was going to Spelman or something. And me, I didn't want to go to UNC. I wanted to go to Morehouse, but Morehouse didn't give me the full scholarship that Carolina gave me. So that's where we met. And when I met her and I saw her, it was like, I knew she was special, so I couldn't play with her, but I knew I had to have her. So I chased her, I chased her for a little while until she finally gave in. And she has been, and pastoring, we do, the other thing about the weight of pastoring, we do it together. We founded a church together. She helps me. We sing together. We do everything together. So having her by my side, she's not just a pastor and a preacher, but she hears from the Lord. She's the one who said, don't do that. I don't think you need to do that. And I'm learning, listen to her.
Listen to her.
I listen to my woman. She's a voice piece of God for me. So having her has made everything just better. So.
You two authored a book together?
So I authored 2 books. Okay. She authored 2 books as well. She has a devotional on dealing with adversity. She has a book of poems and paintings that was birthed out of her dealing with the loss of her daughters. I have, my first book was about purpose. Both of my books about purpose. One was about finding purpose, and the other one was the fight for purpose and dealing with the adversity that comes with it. And then my mother, one of her things she wanted me to do before she left this earth was to publish her poems. So I published that. So we should have a little publishing company. I just haven't had time. I'm kind of like you. I do some everything, but I haven't had time to do that.
It's coming. It's coming. And that's going to be another subject. If you and your wife ever decide you want to come on the show to talk about those books, because I did run across one of your books and the synopsis got my attention, but I won't hold you up for that today. You just got a lot going on. Oh. So you were raised in a church, your mother was a reverend, God was in the house, you went to college, you knew you were being called, but when you decided to study law, were you ever conflicted?
You got some good questions. That was so. I'll tell you, went to UNC. So I got to say, my mother basically told me at a young age, "You going to college? I don't have no money, but you going to college." So
Ooh.
I lived my high school career trying to go to college. So UNC gave me the scholarship. Went to UNC, and you know, for African American children who grew up in socioeconomic disadvantaged families and communities, basically poor kids, we aspire to get out of poverty, to be great in order to get out of poverty. But sometimes we don't have the time to explore exactly what we're going to do. So I went to college. I started as a business major. I sat in classes, was bored, and I said, I need to find something else. So I ended up majoring in public policy, which was new back then, but it's a mixture of political science and a bunch of different disciplines. And I also minored in African American studies. So with that degree, I was like, well, what am I going to do when I graduate? So I knew I wanted to be a preacher. So I went to visit a divinity school, went to the divinity school, and just as I interacted with the students and the professors, I said, I'm going to leave this divinity school. It might not be saved. So I said, I don't want to go to divinity school. So I said, I can learn how to preach in church. So I chose to go to law school. So I went to law school at North Carolina Central University. And the Eagles, I love my law school. They taught me how to practice law well. And then graduated, practiced law in Georgia, came back home, wasn't licensed and had to come back due to my mother and some other things. And was not licensed here. So I became an educator. Taught where I'm from in Warren County, North Carolina. And they said, you need to be a principal. So I got a master's in school administration and climbed that track of like trying to be a superintendent. But in my spare time, I had this thought, I want to finish divinity school. I want to go to divinity school. So I found Regent University had a good program online, and it is one of the best experiences I had. You know, you would think a lot, you know, there's some political undertones that you would think the education would be a certain tract of education, but no, I had a very spirit-filled divinity school experience. So I ended up going, and I have never regretted it. I learned a lot, and I use it every day. So
Wow. So for anyone that has young males, African American males, for you, because even in 2026, they're being told no. Because I know of you making history quite a few times, it tells me that there was issues there stopping people in the first place. So why did you, I guess for you, I assume you knew this, why did you always end up somewhere that you had to be the first one? You were looking for trouble?
No. It started when I was in high school. So
Okay.
Warren County, North Carolina is right now about 20 some thousand people, but it's not a big county. Demographics back then was, you know, black and white, a little heavily African American. And when I graduated, I was the valedictorian. So
Okay.
and I still put it on my resume because it's one of the proudest moments of my life. But I wasn't the first black valedictorian. We had a lot of black valedictorians, but this particular class, I remember my sophomore year, I saw someone in a neighboring county be the valedictorian, and I wanted to be the valedictorian. So my cousin said, "You can't do it." I said, "Oh, I'm gonna do it." So I just started doing as best as I could, but I noticed that some of my Caucasian counterparts always got higher grades than me. If I got a 95, they got a 99. If I had a 96, they had a 130. You know, it was just, you know, And so one day I went to my counselor. I said, I don't like this. And she said, well, you just keep working hard. She didn't really give me an answer. My mother, had put faith in me. So I promise you, I just prayed. I prayed. I asked God, I want to be the valedictorian. I said, I want to do it. So what happened was my grades were still great, but they weren't perfect. But as my grades were going up, the other people's grades was going down. So I never forget, I was in California at a competition for something because I was always winning like FBLA competition stuff. And one of my classmates called me and said, Hassan, guess what? You're the valedictorian. I was in shock. So I was named the valedictorian, and some of my counterparts decided they wanted to challenge it. So they made them take the weights off the GPAs. They had a fit. And they took the weights off the GPAs, and I was still the valedictorian.
Look at God.
I learned that was my first. And my mother, let me say, my mother fought for me. She said, she went to that school. She said, y'all not going to make my baby feel bad for being the best. And I never forget it. And so then I was the scholarship I got to UNC, I was the first one from my school to get it.
Wow.
And it was this scholarship. I went to UNC, went to Central, then just started working. So Warren County, North Carolina, where I'm from, I went back and taught there. But after I passed the bar, they asked, somehow I became the county attorney. I was the second in-house county attorney. They had used other firms before. And I stayed there as long as, I could progress. But I started applying. I knew it was time to go. So an opportunity opened up in Wake Forest. I got the opportunity. I was the first Black attorney in Wake Forest, North Carolina, growing suburb of Wake County. I was the first in-house counsel they had ever had. And then I wanted, I started applying for some other things because God will have you in a place for a season and you'll start, how you get unsettled? And a lot of times we don't know what to do with settling. The people start acting up and we think it's the devil and all that kind of, but God just is really trying to move you to a different level.
It's something you said that because I'm trying to figure out now, am I being bothered on my job? Because God said it's time, Stacey.
It might be. And that's what I learned. Sometimes the adversity pushes you. So I decided I wanted a bigger challenge. I wanted to be a city manager. So an opportunity opened up for me to go up the road and I grew up in Warren County and Henderson, and I became their attorney, got there, and then they needed a manager. So they named me the city manager and the city attorney. So I was the first in the history of a Black city. I was the first African-American attorney. Wow. I couldn't even believe it. It's one of the blackest cities in North Carolina, but I was the first African-American attorney there. And I was the first person to have a dual role as the manager and attorney in the city space. I was probably the first in the state. And I just, God kind of moves you the way he wants to go. And I think some of it has been for me to be a testimony to African-American boys.
Okay.
That you can do it. You can do it. You can overcome any obstacle. There's so many things, and you cannot let the obstacles define you. I always tell people, I don't want to look like what I went through. I don't want to meet you and you see that I lost children and all the stuff that happened. I want to be able for you to see that I overcame. So I'm just a living example that you can do anything, not just for Black kids. I was at a school the other day reading a book called Hey Black Child to some second graders. And the book says, hey, Black child, do you know who you are, who you really are, who you can be when you try to be, who you want to be? And it's just, you can do anything and you can fulfill the purpose that God puts in your life.
Wow. I love it. I love it. So to do what you're doing, describe yourself in 3 words, because you've already said you've been through a lot of things. How is it being the first and going through so much personal stuff? What are the characteristics of the man that can stand without falling and even do what he's doing? 3 words.
3 words. I would say integrity, I would say resilience, and this is a new one. I would never have said this: trust. You got to trust God. You just have to have a. I've always been a person of faith. When people meet me, I preach and I teach on faith. I know how to obtain things through faith. But I've been in situations in my life where God tested my faith, so I didn't have nothing else to do but to trust God. You have to have a level of trust in God. And here's the challenge: sometimes you got to trust people. People you don't even like. You got to trust that God can handle them. Then you got to trust process. And what I found, I don't mean to, this is probably supposed to be a little more political than all that.
Listen.
People don't want to go through nothing.
Right. This platform right here, you say what you want to say. People don't want to go through anything. People don't want to fight for other people. Neighbors don't help with the kids when they see them in the street being bad. Times have changed.
This is different.
And with this here, first African-American attorney in Prince George County, Virginia. You said you love the Tidewater area. You loved Virginia. But you had a life in Carolina. Why Virginia? And what are you bringing?
Wow, that's a good question. So in 2024, I decided to waive into Virginia as an attorney. I didn't take the test. I just got my license because if you practice, you can get admitted by motion. But when I was at Regent, even though I lived in North Carolina, I said, I knew then that God had something for me in Virginia. And so, believe it or not, I've tried to move to Virginia several times.
Okay.
I have an educator's license in Virginia. It's always been on the horizon, but this was the time. I started applying even 2 years ago, once I got my license for legal positions. And there would be doors that would try to open up, wouldn't open up. But I believe that the door that opened up was for me. And so what I bring in Prince George seems to be a very rich in heritage. I think that everywhere, we're in a time where things are changing.
Right.
Things are just changing.
Right.
And I think what I bring is just different. Even though I'm probably just as country as everybody there.
Okay.
I have a different set of experience, a different flavor. And so I bring my experiences, my difference. I view it as, how when you're in a place and in the Bible, when Abraham and Lot's herdsmen, they couldn't stay in the same area together. Abraham said, I'm going. I think North Carolina, I've kind of outgrown my experience here and I moved into Virginia. It's like a Rehoboth for me. It's a broad space. It's a new space. And as I come in, I feel like I'm bringing everything that I am, the faith, the integrity, all the stuff. And I offer that. Legally, I think the landscape in Virginia is changing as well. The times in the country are changing. I think people are going to be moving. People all over are going to be being geographically moved in unexpected places. So I just bring who I am, all this experience to make that community the best it could be. I think everywhere we go, we are supposed to make where we are better. So that's why I think God has brought me to Prince George.
Yes, sir. I had one other question, but something has been popped on my mind, and I won't get too deep in it. Have you ever, as an African-American man standing in a courtroom, hurt or just hurt to see who's walking in the courtroom being on trial? Is that hard as a Black man?
It was. So when my first job in Georgia, when I moved to Georgia, I was a prosecutor. I was a solicitor. So I prosecuted misdemeanors. And part of why I didn't stay in that job, I saw African American men taking the brunt. Now, it was one thing to hear the statistics of how we are in the criminal justice system and all that kind of stuff. But as a prosecutor, that was hands by far the most people who were brought charges against. The charges that I dealt with, it was African American men, and I did hurt.
Yes,
and
sir.
So I made that choice to go into a different legal part of the law because of that.
And thank you for answering that, because at the end of the day, I'll say this, and some people don't like when I say this. I know what we see in the court, and I know it sometimes is not fair, but like I've told my boys, if you do what you're supposed to do, you ain't got to go through that. So, I'm thankful that for the man that you are. I'm thankful that you explained to Stacey, because I'm telling you, it's been on my mind. How is he a pastor and an attorney? I thank you. And my last question for you is, because you made history quite a few times, but you will be in this history book in this county. What do you want your grandchildren to tell their children, and they tell their children, when someone says, who was grandpa or granddad Hassan Kingsberry?
Wow, that's good. I want my children and my grandchildren to know that I was a man of faith and that I move with purpose. My purpose, I like your statement about encouraging, inspiring, and entertaining. My life purpose is to motivate, encourage, and to make sure people can overcome any adversity. And so I want my story, when it's told, he dealt with all that, but at the end of the day, he was still making history, and he was excellent while he did it. And I want them to carry out the same excellence. So the love, integrity, faith, and excellence is the core values of my life and my church. And it's an acronym: LIFE: love, integrity, faith, and excellence. And that's what I want my children and my grandchildren to live out in this world.
Wow. Daya Rogers Grice is popping on. She's been commenting through the whole show. When you're chosen by God, there are no limits.
That's
Speak,
right.
sister. Speak.
That's the truth.
Attorney Kingsberry, this has been great. The book about adversity and the poems. Can you tell us the name of the books for anybody that's watching that may want to check it out before you and your wife come back on the show?
I would be glad to. So if you go on Amazon and you Google my name, Hassan Kingsberry, you'll see The Fight for Purpose, which is one of my books. You'll see the poems of Sheila Kingsbury Burt. On Becoming is the name of that book. And if you just Google, it's right there. And my wife, you Google our names, we kind of link. You find one page, you'll find the other one. But our books are on Amazon, available for you to buy.
Well, this has been really great. I am very thankful. I will be here in the county. I hope to just see you speaking on the news or being interviewed. Because let me say this, I forgot. I said, do you want to interview him? What if you get a ticket and you got to go in front of him?
You won't have to go in front of me.
I said, Stacey, you better think about that thing. But no. Attorney Kingsberry, I am wishing you the very best. And if you see a white Honda at the red light blowing at you, it's me.
Yes, come stop by and see me. Come see me.
I will, sir. And should you ever need Stacey, just hit me up. And I'm wishing you the best and hope to see you and your wife perhaps in 2026. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you,
sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Once again, another great interview. Listen, Monday morning, if you have a friend or a family member that you really think need to hear the words of what Mr. Kingsbury said, Attorney Kingsbury said, just tell them, look for the link on my page, and they can listen on their way to work while they drink their coffee on Cool 101.2 Pop out of Richmond. You guys, another great one. And I'll tell you, like I always tell you, don't stress too much about yesterday. Don't worry too much about tomorrow, because if we do, we just might miss living today. Wishing everybody a great one. Bye.